Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Karin Helmstedt.
Hi there, and welcome to our highlights of the past week, lining up this time with these and other stories. The magic of dance, the Flying Steps brand new stage show. The Rapture of the deep, taking the plunge with a French freediver. And vintage vehicles on the road with classic cars. Well, breakdance grew out of the hip-hop scene on the streets of New York, and it had its heyday back in the 1980s. But if you think it's passé, well, then you'll have to think again. The Berlin breaker troupe, Flying Steps, is always finding ways to keep things fresh and exciting, and they see breakdance as a bona fide performance art to wow the masses. And so we went to see them in action.
The Flying Steps kicked off their tour in Berlin, presenting their new show at the Tempodrome venue. What's special about this high-octane performance is that the dancers combine breakdancing with visual effects and illusions. The idea came from artistic director Vatan Basil.
I've noticed that people are always fascinated by breakdancing. They want to know how you can spin on your head for so long, or go down on one arm and freeze in a position. And I started wanting to combine that with having someone floating for a bit, or disappear then reappear somewhere else, and carry on with his moves.
In the Flying Illusion show, the dancers' skills are further enhanced by optical tricks. To help achieve these trompe-l'œil, the Flying Steps hired a magician. Breakdance and illusion, a groundbreaking combination.
Just imagine, here are breakdancers who've never had anything to do with creating illusions, but they know how to develop and perform a good dance move, and they know how to rehearse. And they know that it can take a long time before you can create the desired effect. So there are these parallels with performing magic. It's not as if you can just go on stage and perform perfectly.
The Flying Steps have become known for their pioneering productions. In 2010, they started breakdancing to classical music and were hugely successful with it. More than 200,000 people have seen their Flying Bach show so far, and the production is still touring the world. Flying Steps got its start more than 20 years ago at a youth center in Berlin. The B-Boys, as the dancers are called, have won numerous awards in the years since, including 4 breakdance world championship titles and an Echo, one of Germany's most prestigious music awards. The latest show, Flying Illusion, will hopefully match this success. The recent world premiere in Berlin was appropriately lavish. Performances are scheduled in 7 other German cities over the coming months.
What you do? Go more back a little bit?
For the past 5 months, the 11 performers have been rehearsing intensively. The dancers see these performances as a chance to establish breakdance as an art form.
As the Flying Steps, we've been working towards that for many years, simply to gain greater acceptance from the general public. Breakdance still has this hip-hop image, this sort of bad street image. But we want to show that we are truly artists and that we work very hard.
They don't just want to present a good show, they also want to tell a story. It's about the age-old struggle between good and evil. It's a concept the audience seems to like.
It was totally cool. All the illusions. Sometimes I couldn't tell what was real or not.
World class, totally crazy. The production technology, too, unbelievable.
They've tried something new. I think that's great. They've just gone further than others. I thought it was super.
The show was super. Really high quality. The moves were extravagant. There's never been anything like it ever.
Impressive. You don't usually get to see something like this. You get so many new impressions. It really stayed with me.
70 minutes of breakdancing paired with illusions. The flying steps prove that breakdancing belongs as much on the stage as it does on the street. A show that turns a subculture quite literally on its head and takes it into the mainstream.
Oh, when Spanish photographer Miguel Vallinas set out to do his recent series Second Skins, his stated intention was to investigate the animal in all of us. Well, the result is a whimsical and at times rather disarming set of portraits which blurs the boundaries between man and beast. And we met up with Vallinas in Mendoza in northern Spain with one of his greatest inspirations at his side.
Leo the hunting dog and his owner, photographer Miguel Vallinas, have lots in common. For instance, they both prefer to be outdoors. How much do animals and people resemble each other? Many dog owners have pondered that question, and Miguel Vallinas has devoted a whole photo series to it. His first model was Leo, of course.
I imagined I was a painter, and Senor Leo would pose as my model for a long time.
Segundas Pieles, or Second Skins, is the title of Vallinas' series about the similarities between humans and other animals, and about the signals that clothes and gestures broadcast.
In this portrait, I continued the rabbit's fur in the rabbit fur stole it's wearing, the way an elegant lady would wear it. The fawn isn't exactly childish, but it is rather delicate and recalls a small girl with her little handbag.
The series comprises 43 portraits. Vallinas worked on it for half a year.
In my work, I like to control everything as far as possible. That's very important to me. The lighting, the gestures, the staging, the clothing, the coloration. I like to implement my idea precisely the way I imagined it.
That's why the final portraits are created on the computer. For the bodies in the pictures, Vallinas photographs himself or friends. The heads are usually photos of stuffed animals. He alters the images on the computer the way a painter uses brushes and colors.
Actually, I'm a frustrated painter. I like to paint, but I never had the patience to wait until a painting is finished. That's why I made the mistake of choosing photography as my medium. I thought all you had to do was release the shutter and you'd have a result. Only later did I realize that photography also requires lots of preparation and isn't as spontaneous as you might think.
And when he needs a break from his job, he photographs landscapes. Silencio Blanco, White Silence, is the title of a series currently on display in many shop windows in Medina del Campo.
I love variety. When I finish a series, there was a big strain. I go out into nature and take pictures there. I enjoy a landscape that's empty of people, where I can be alone with my camera and nature. I enjoy that.
These are the moments when he can relax and give free rein to his imagination, and where he creates his wonderful worlds of animals and humans.
For several years now, Berlin has been touted as the trendiest city on the planet, but the latest lifestyle media buzz seems to indicate the German capital has been downgraded somewhat on the cool scale. Well, statistics, on the other hand, are still telling a very different story, so we checked some facts and spoke to some of the local custodians of cool.
A typical weeknight in Berlin. People dance and drink until the wee hours in clubs like Sage. It's a lot of activity for a city that's lost its title as the capital of cool. Or is the entire debate nothing more than a diversion?
The things that made Berlin hip are still here. Some people say, who needs Berlin? But I say, don't believe everything you hear. Put down your newspaper, come here and see for yourself.
The many millions of tourists who visit Berlin each year do just that. Their number is growing, and so is the number of people who live here.
Berlin's the coolest and most relaxed city in Europe.
In Berlin, you can dive into a bunch of different worlds and cultures.
I like the freedom you have here.
You can be anything you want here.
It's always changing. It's a permanent Baustelle.
Baustelle, that's German for construction site. And it's true, Berlin is still changing. Some mainstays of the counterculture have closed while others take their place. The city is also attracting young entrepreneurs and startups. They're giving the city a boost and creating new hotspots like Café St. Oberholz.
Some things have changed, but the mix is still very stimulating. Berlin is growing up, and new structures are coming alive in a way that's very healthy. It makes for a good mix.
Berlin's hipster reputation also owes something to its thriving contemporary art scene. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall, the city has become home to about 440 galleries, more than any other European city. An exhibition in Berlin is a feather in the cap of any artist.
Every generation reinvents Berlin and creates a new city in its own image. That's what makes living here so fabulous. Every 5 or 6 years, Berlin reinvents itself and you have an entirely new city to discover.
The art scene is also heavily influenced by international artists who have come here to live, like Isabella Borges.
Lots of creative people come here. There are thousands of project spaces for art, and there are a lot of ideas, lots of interaction. It's a very dynamic city.
Berlin has hundreds of museums and monuments. It also boasts 150 theaters and stages in every genre, and about 12,000 restaurants, cafes, and ice cream parlors. Meanwhile, the city is appealing to a more upmarket clientele. A new luxury hotel is built almost every year. Berlin hosts an average of 500,000 visitors each day, many of them tourists.
Everyone wants to come to Berlin. Berlin isn't a marketing product someone thought up. It's an authentic city. Berlin stands for freedom, tolerance, creativity, and culture. It's the thrill of the big city, this mixture of subculture, high culture, and authentic history. That's what we're marketing.
The history of the former divided Germany fascinates many tourists. And when duty calls, the locals will raise a ruckus to preserve historical sites like the East Side Gallery, the longest stretch of the Berlin Wall still in existence. And then there's the nightlife. The techno club Berghain and the Watergate are on many a must-see list. In the 1990s, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, clubs and bars expanded into the reunified city's many empty spaces. Like the techno club Tresor, housed in a former department store. Today there are fewer unused spaces and everything is more regulated. But Berlin remains a city teeming with possibility.
There are still many undiscovered spots in the city with free spaces for new projects. As long as that's still true, people will flock here and try to make their dreams a reality. This is still a wild and edgy place to be.
Berlin is still in motion. Clubs or restaurants like White Trash often close in one location only to reopen again elsewhere.
It's been lovely.
So come to Berlin, don't be a wimp, it's great.
Yeah.
And there you have it. After one day and one night, we have our answer. Berlin still seems to be the capital of cool.
Well, anyone who was enchanted by the French film The Big Blue back in the 1980s will remember its seductive portrayal of the ocean depths. And Guillaume Néry is a freediver from France who can testify to what they call the rapture of the deep. Well, a former world record holder who hit depths of 117 meters without an oxygen tank, he's now swimming in safer waters as a filmmaker with a story to tell.
Images that show the beauty of an extreme sport, one that's always overshadowed by the spectre of death. Barely a season goes by without a free diver dying. But for the creators of the film Narcos, free diving is simply the most amazing sport in the world.
We're trying to have another point of view to what freediving is. We are not showing records or deep diving. We're trying to emphasize on the beauty of the sport.
Here in Nice, on France's Mediterranean coast, freedivers Julie Gauthier and Guillaume Néry prepare for today's shoot with stretching and breathing exercises. At a depth of 100 meters, lungs shrink to the size of 2 oranges.
Do a lot of breathing exercise, a lot of stretching exercise in order to accept this pressure. The key of deep diving is to relax and accept. If you fight against the pressure, you're gonna feel the pain and it's gonna be uncomfortable and you can hurt yourself.
The two free divers have been a couple for several years, having met through their sport. They branched out into filmmaking 4 years ago with their first video, Free Fall. Inspired by base jumping videos, it shows Guillaume Néry's free fall in Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas.
Guillaume was in the Bahamas for the competition, and we had this camera, and he said, oh yeah, we have a good camera, we should make a movie. He said, okay, you just take the camera. And we made Free Fall, that we have now 18 million views. It's just crazy.
Their internet fans financed the couple's latest project through crowdfunding. Narcos was made more or less on their own doorstep, here in the Bay of Villefranche-sur-Mer and in the mountains near the Côte d'Azur. The short film deals with the hallucinations that free divers can have on very deep dives, the classic rapture of the deep caused by nitrogen narcosis. Once, Guillaume Néry had a vision of marrying his girlfriend.
Visions and the narcosis and the rapture of the depths are not always funny. Sometimes it's kind of scary, and when I'm a bit anxious before the dive, it can be a nightmare down there.
Today they're doing test shots for new videos. Julie Gauthier has always been fascinated by the rapture of the deep, though she's never yet experienced it herself. It's especially strong during dives of 90 meters or more. During their shoots, great depths don't play a role. Here, it's about their collaboration underwater and how the lack of heavy diving equipment makes it special.
You have a freedom of movement underwater. Julie, when she's filming me, she can follow me up and down. She can go at the same speed. She can turn around me. And freediving, the sports freediving is freedom. So filming on freediving is filming with freedom.
After the test shots, they head back to their apartment on the outskirts of Nice, where their 2-year-old daughter Melou awaits them. This season, Guillaume Néry is taking a break from competitions and world record attempts. One reason for that is the death last autumn of an American freediver. Guillaume and Julie want to use the time for more film projects. Narcos will soon have its premiere, and they hope it will be as successful as Free Fall.
So if we expect too much, we're going to be disappointed. So no expectation, even if deep inside of our mind we are like, we hope it's going to be successful again.
But the internet will have to wait a little longer for Narcos, because it's first going to screen at various festivals. But in the meantime, the two will soon be uploading a video they shot in the underwater world of French Polynesia.
Well, finally, they don't get out of the garage very often, but when they do, it's an occasion in itself. And when you consider that some classic old-timer automobiles are worth many millions of euros, well, that's maybe not too hard to understand. Annette Abaci is acutely aware of these sensitive details, and as a vintage car specialist, she spends much of her time on the road searching for those dreams on 4 wheels for the next old-timer auction.
A test drive in northern Germany. This car may end up sold at auction. It's a 1964 Ferrari 250 GT Lusso, one of only 350 worldwide. It's estimated to be worth more than €1 million. And where cars like this are sold, this woman is not far behind. Annette Abaci, an expert on vintage cars, is visiting a client.
It's simply the passion to own something beautiful. It's an unbelievable feeling of joy. When the owner turns the key in the ignition, the engine starts and the 12 cylinders start purring away, it's great.
The Ferrari is carefully inspected. Dealers like Abaci are always involved in sales in this price category. Her address book is full of potential buyers. What they're most interested in are the body and engine, any racing past, and the rarity of a vehicle.
We really look for cars that have something exceptional, and this one definitely does. Only a few of them were ever built, and the body has a beautiful shape. It has a huge 12-cylinder engine. There are several criteria that come together to qualify this as a very desirable collector's car.
Frank Petzold has owned the car for several years, but is now considering selling it for financial reasons, albeit reluctantly.
It's like with music. You remember songs from your past, your first love, which you associate with a certain song. And in the same way, you associate a car with certain aspects or phases of your life.
Annette Abaci brings together sellers and possible buyers here in Hamburg at the only German office of RM Auctions. She looks after collectors from across Europe, and her client base is growing. Vintage car prices rose 8% last year alone. Cars are more in demand as investments than ever before.
People were investing in vintage cars 10 years ago, but that was just a very small group of aficionados. It's now become far more popular and has become a much broader field.
Abaci shares the collector's enthusiasm. She regularly takes her Jaguar Roadster out for a spin, as on this recent jaunt in the Alps. She keeps in touch with clients at races and rallies because it's become quite a challenge to find collectors who want to part with their vintage babies.
That's the tough part of a market that's so strong. We have a lot of potential customers, but there are few owners willing to sell. They don't see the point in selling their great cars because they wouldn't be able to get anything like it for a similar price.
And that's exactly why the auctions are so successful. It's not uncommon to see proceeds of, say, 7 million euros, like for this pre-war era Mercedes, or 1 million for a Porsche once owned by actor Steve McQueen. But there are also cars for newcomers with prices starting at 15,000 euros for models like this Fiat 500 or this 1950s Alfa Romeo.
It's the excitement. What will happen? Will that person bid again, or that one? Will I get it? Whether I'm bidding for a client on the phone or the client is in the auction hall, that excitement creates such enthusiasm for this kind of sale.
RM Auctions alone holds 8 to 10 auctions of this kind per year. A new owner might soon be taking the wheel of Frank Petzold's Ferrari.
And that's all for this time on Euromaxx. So until we meet again, alles Gute aus Berlin. Tschüss und auf Wiedersehen.